Hi, and welcome to Picard Cast. This week, I'm your host, Brooke, and as always, I am graced by the presence of Rebekah.
Hi, Brooke. How are you?
Good. We don't have just a guest. We have a special guest. I mean, not like that kind of special guest, but a special guest as in Rebekah's sister. Yay! Her name is Janine. How are you doing, Janine?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. How did you get into Star Trek? I assume it's similar to Rebekah, but it might not be, just because you lived in the same house.
Yeah, actually, it's the complete opposite.
Oh.
No, yeah, like our dad is super into Trek. He did one of those like mail order things, I think from like Time magazine, where he got the original series on these big bulky VHS that were like 2 episodes per tape, and they were like his prize collection. And you know, we all had our favorite episodes, but like we grew up just watching that all the time. And when one of the first Star Trek movies came into theaters, my dad basically just threw a couple of T-shirts at us and said, "We're going to go see Star Trek tonight." So it's always been a big part of our life.
Did your other 2 sisters, did they get into any of that? Did you all watch it as a family? Or was it like just like the 3 of you guys, or what kind of? I hadn't really asked what kind of dynamic you had, because you know you have it's just me and like my stepbrother, so I have a smaller family. But you have 6 in your family, and I didn't know who all. Well, I guess 7 because your dog, but that he was later.
Right. No, I think like especially when Star Trek: The Next Generation premiered, like I think when the premiere episode dropped, like all 6 of us sat down as a family and watched it. My 2 younger sisters are not as into Star Trek. They are more Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Supernatural, still very geek-centric, but okay. I don't think Star Trek was ever really their thing.
Okay. That could make sense. So, why we are covering Best of Both Worlds 1 and 2. This episode, we're doing 1. Why did you pick this set of episodes?
1 is the Borg are probably my favorite Star Trek villains. Mm-hmm. And 2, you get to see Picard shirtless. And I'm a big fan of that.
Listen, sometimes his outfits are also good too.
Oh yes, no, look, I'm also a fan of like that sort of like very relaxed number that he wears that's very open at the chest.
Yeah. Or his pajamas that look like that with the shorts.
Yes.
Or
all hail the shorts.
Yes, and he had the one where he had the riding outfit and it was like a sweater and like the hat, but the pants were fantastic. I'm like, oh, Patrick Stewart, I did not realize your behind was so nice. Like
the very first episode, it was, oh, Captain, my Captain.
So, anyway, there's probably going to be a lot more of this, of course.
Yeah, my notes are full of little hearts for Picard.
Perfect. They're Picards. No.
Picards. Oh, I like that. Picards.
All right. So this was the season finale of episode of season 3. So it's episode 26. It aired first June 18th, 1990. So when I was 8, I guess. So I guess Janine, you were still 8 then, right? When's your birthday? I don't even know when your birthday is. Sorry. Never mind. No, that's okay. Nobody else needs to know that.
Actually, I think I was... Hold on. If this is 1990, then I'm 9. June. I was 9. I was still 8. I wasn't quite 9 yet.
Yeah. Because you're just like... I was trying to remember what month your birthday was in.
Actually, it just passed. It's in October.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, so it was June, so technically I was still 7, but then you and I are the same age for, 3 months, so then, so that's fine. Let's see. It was directed by Cliff Bole, and it was written by Micah Pillar, and this was the 4th one that he did this season, and he's also been, like, a executive producer and stuff, so if you haven't really looked into any of, like, people who write Trek or are involved in it, there are people who are involved, like, the whole time. But a cool thing about this episode is that, like, Michael Piller considers it to be like Riker-centric episode, which, you know, because he takes command and does everything. And he related to the character because he was trying to decide if he wanted to leave or not. He wanted to move on to bigger, better things. But come on, it's Star Trek. How could you... It's pretty big and better than a lot of things. But Gene Roddenberry and Rick Berman convinced him to stay. So it was kind of like they were his conscience or whatever convinced Riker to stay, because it wasn't specifically Picard or anything that convinced him to stay. It was just he decided to stay. But anyway, I thought that was interesting that he wrote this episode because he sort of was having those feelings.
That's really interesting.
Cool little backstory, yeah.
I like that. That's a really cool fact about this episode, because you really do feel that, right? Like, you feel that Riker is struggling with if he should stay or go, and it's definitely reflected in both halves of this story.
Yeah, because at this point in this episode, he just sort of gets Captain thrust upon him, and he may think then that he's definitely going to take it, but we don't know until the second episode what happens. But that'll be next time. A thing I thought was cool, this first episode of these two won Emmy Awards for Outstanding Art Direction for a series and Outstanding Sound Editing for a series. So I thought that was neat.
Cool. That's very cool.
Yeah. I have so many notes, everybody, that that I have some at the beginning and the end, and then things in the middle. A thing that I found interesting that I didn't really know about is that Piller sort of moved the direction of the stories from like an alien of the week, kind of like how some of these superhero shows are now, you know, to more like character-based stories, which is the thing that I really enjoy about Star Trek. Those are like my most favorite episodes. It's like where it's based on the characters, but then there's sci-fi stuff happening around them.
Yeah, I think that's why season 4 and on are generally, I think most fans agree that they are the best seasons. I would say that I think personally for me, season 5 is the strongest season of all of them. But it definitely is all about character rather than, villain of the week or freak of the week, as you mentioned. They do it a lot like in The Flash and Arrow.
But yeah, I thought that was cool. I think that's a thing that really, those kind of episodes, when they had maybe one or two or whatever here before that, those kind of things are ones that really, I feel like, resonate more with like the general public, which can make this more popular because not everybody necessarily wants to go in, like my mom's like, I don't just want to watch some fighting aliens. It's like, no, this is a show about people, and then there just happens to be aliens they have to fight. There's character development. And I thought this was cool because sometimes you find out that maybe they don't work together on some shows. You don't necessarily see writers working together where something happens in one episode and then the next episode it's kind of thrown out the window and nobody remembers what just happened. Or on one of my other podcasts, I read Doctor Who books, and those writers didn't seem to talk to each other much because some of the characterizations are completely different. But that's for another thing. But Piller worked with Ronald D. Moore, who wrote Family, which is this episode. Then we'll have the next episode, which is part 2, and then Family will be after that. So keep your ears open for when we get to that, because they considered that one like the third of the trilogy, like that they were all three together, even though there's no actual Borg in Family, but it's sort of the aftermath. And there wasn't really a plan to have that, how Picard was affected, but they decided that they were going to do that, and Gene Roddenberry and Rick Berman were kind of like, okay, but it has to have some sort of sci-fi story, and instead they were like, sorry guys, and just had family stories in it, which, like I said, we will be talking about that one soon in a couple weeks. So I thought that was kind of great that they were like, yeah, sure. Oh, never mind, we didn't do that. I mean, they put 3 stories in there, and they really didn't need 3 stories in that one, but that's fine. I don't know what got into me. I just started researching all kinds of things for this one, but I thought this was cool. The score was composed and conducted by Ron Jones, and it was released as an album in 1991, which I thought was cool. It had pretty good music and everything. For their cliffhanger, it has this very like dramatic music and stuff, and Seth MacFarlane wanted to use that in a cliffhanger on Family Guy, but they couldn't work it out with Paramount. So Ron Jones went and wrote something similar for their cliffhanger to this. I thought that was
I honestly always thought it was the exact same music.
Yeah.
Because it's so similar. I thought it was the same.
Yep, he changed it enough that they could use it without, like...
That's pretty awesome.
...doing anything with Paramount, so I thought that was cool. Also, they re-released the album in 2013, and it was an extended edition, and it had some previously unreleased material that Jones had written and stuff. So I thought that was really cool, too. I was like, oh, all right. Maybe I could pick up some albums. So after all of that, let's get to the story. As I said, we're doing Best Both Worlds Part 1. Responding to a distress call on one of the Federation's outermost colonies, the Enterprise arrives, only to find a big hole in the ground where the town used to be, and discovers the Borg are behind the attack. So that synopsis basically tells you everything. But it's much, much more to this episode. As many, many episodes do, we have our obligatory shot of the Enterprise in space. We hear the voiceover, Picard, stardate 43989.1, and for all you out there, that is Tuesday, May 31st, 2366, and it's 2144, 944, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm having to math. Like small math. I could if it were differential equations, this would be a different story. The Joret 4 is that, and I
think they say it Joret 4.
Yes.
I think it's the French pronunciation.
Joret.
They only eat baguettes and drink red wine on Joret 4.
Joret cat.
It's Le Borg.
Oh, sacre bleu, Le Borg!
Oh my god. Oh, we must get away from the Borg.
Mon Dieu.
Where's my croissant? I need to throw it at the Borg. So, the distress signal comes from Joret 4, and that's one of the outermost colonies. We have Riker, Worf, Data, and Geordi who beam down to see what's going on at Providence Colony. And there's nothing but a huge crater. Where are we? Like Riker's asking O'Brien, who beamed them down, and he's supposed to be an expert at this. He's like, are you sure you beamed us in the right place? And O'Brien's like, that's right, dead center in the middle of town, you guys.
Oh, can I just say, as much as I love the Star Trek universe, I would never want to be in one of the outermost colonies of the Federation. They literally drop you off and just go later days, 5 million light years away.
Right?
They're like, here's a replicator. Here's some period-specific clothes. Deuces. Everything happens to them.
Except for there was that one colony that they picked up, and they didn't have a replicator. They were like Scottish or Irish or something. That's what it sounded like. You remember them?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
And then there was the other colony that had gone when they did, and they were clones or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Spoilers for some of their episode that I can't remember the name of. So
spoilers for a 30-year-old TV show.
Well, there's someone who hasn't seen it. Anyway, I think I would be rather distressed if I, showed up somewhere that I was supposed to be and there was nothing but a gigantic crater in the ground. It's like, all of a sudden, how am I at the Grand Canyon? I was supposed to be in Indianapolis. It's like, what? So we see another so they're really going for it. They're doing another shot with another, captain's log,